It looks like the recording. Oh, okay. All right, so we've started the recording for this session. So being here, you agree to be recorded, but I don't think that we don't have anybody else on except for the presenter. So that's not an issue. Okay, thank you, everybody. We're at 1 o'clock, a little over. We're going to get started on our next session. So we have Andrea, and she's going to be doing 8-week plan for engaging, supporting, and governing citizen developers. I've already received a request on social media to get this immediately to somebody who couldn't be here for this session.
Oh,
So I'll probably do a little intro and just if you have slides, you can send it to her directly. But
yep, yep.
all right, thank you. Take it away. The floor is yours. I'll be here. I'll be here if you need me, but yep, so let's have my camera off and be in the background.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom, and I'm really honored to be here. This is a great, as we were saying before, such a great event. Really excited about it. So before we begin, a special thanks to our sponsor. I don't want to say their name just in case I say it wrong, so I'm not going to say it. But great, it's wonderful when sponsors sponsor these kind of events. Because these are the events that get people, I think, started on a lot of these technologies. So that's really important. So thanks to our sponsor. So very quickly, a little bit about me. I am Andrea Mondello. That is my QR code for LinkedIn. So feel free. Love to link into you. I promise you this, if you link into me, I will not send you an immediate spam to sell you something. That's not what I do. So don't worry about that. Andrea Mondello, I am a manager at Witham Smith and Brown. We're one of the, I think, 22nd largest accounting firms in the US, but we have a digital transformation division, and I'm in that digital transformation division. Also, that is my Twitter handle. And I also, if you happen to play World of Warcraft, you can come and see me. I play on Zangarmarsh, and that's one of my iterations, Gardell Arena there on Zangarmarsh. I've been playing World of Warcraft since Burning Crusade days, not vanilla, but shortly thereafter. So for those of you who know what that means, more power to you. What's the agenda? Let's get to the agenda. First, I'm going to explain why I'm passionate about this topic, and I think why many of you should be as well. We are going to talk about the difference and similarities between citizen developers and kind of our classic Microsoft 365/SharePoint champions. We're going to talk about how to build citizen developer success. And then I'm going to give you an 8-week plan. And at the end of this deck are tons of supplemental materials, which of course I will upload the deck and let the event organizers, do what they will with it. And then hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A. So why this topic? So you'll see here, this is my little attempt at a meme. My son teaches me about memes, so I try to do memeing. But really, the real reason why I'm so passionate about this topic is this. This is really how I got my start, right? So being a citizen developer or a maker is not a new thing, even though low code, no code tools are fairly new. This is not a new thing. Many of us started out, I'm sure many of the folks here on this call, you may or may not be an IT person. But many of the folks who have been in IT, like myself, and my career has been, I didn't really talk about my career, I'll sprinkle that throughout, but I'm much older than I look, I like to think. I've been doing Microsoft technologies for like 25 years. I was SharePoint when it was called STS Team Services. So I did Portal Server 2001 and 2007, 2003, and then 2007, then BPOS, then you get the idea. I've been around a long time. I'm ancient history. So and I feel this topic is very personal to me because I feel like I started out really as a citizen developer. That was kind of the beginning for me. And that mentality and that drive and that I was given opportunities to do it. And I think if we're not giving people the opportunities to do this, we're actually stifling some great careers. So I feel like I've had an amazing career. I've had amazing opportunities in my life. And I feel like I want other people to have that as well. And so I always feel sad when I hear some of, even, maybe clients, the IT department at some of our clients, or people I meet at conferences, and, they'll say, oh, this citizen developer thing doesn't work, or, it's too much trouble, or I would rather just lock everything down, and that just hurts my heart, because that's not what digital transformation is all about, right? And I get it. Security people got a security, totally get that part. But you know what? We can have the best of both worlds, and hopefully I will convince you of that today. So that's why this topic. So I do think, for a long time, I have run tons of champion programs and done lots of change management over my career. And again, just to give you a sense of kind of where I've been, I talked a little about the whole SharePoint thing. I've done front-end development. I've been the SharePoint admin for organizations. I've been a business analyst. I've done other IT projects, been the project manager. I was the web editor for a national magazine. I've just done a lot of crazy things over my life. I've also done accounting. I was an accountant. And my first, by the way, my fun fact is, my first real job was at the Bronx Zoo. I grew up in the Bronx. I know you can't tell from my accent, but I grew up in the Bronx, and at the Bronx Zoo, my first title, literally on my check, was camel handler. That was my first job. So I feel like maybe I'm still handling camels. So, but anyway, I've been around a while, done these kinds of things. And what I did, some of you, I'm sure many of you have seen this slide. So this is a slide that Microsoft gives you. They have like these decks about, how to do a champion program, right? And this is right out of that. And I'm going to show you something. I thought about this, and I kind of, you'll see why I'm doing this. So what do champions do? They evangelize, they help train, they build awareness, understanding, engagement. How do champions make a difference? They evangelize on new ways of working, build awareness, so on. They create enthusiasm. They build a circle of influence. They bring new ways of working to life. They identify business challenges, right? What do citizen developers do? Let's have a look. Let's take the same slide and think about this. Citizen developers don't evangelize new ways of working. They create new ways of working, don't they? They don't build awareness, although they do. They build solutions. And when we think about responsibilities of a citizen developer, I thought, no, the actions of a citizen developer are very action-oriented, right? Just something to think about. How do citizen developers make a difference? So again, we're looking at the same slide. They create the groundswell, the gross adoption, not adoption of improved ways of working, but the gross adoption by improving ways of working. They do the thing. Identify business challenges and possible solutions? No. Identify business challenges and develop solutions. You get the idea. You get what I'm saying here, right? So when we think about our traditional champion programs, and we think about citizen developers and developing a program around them, there's a lot here. There's a lot of difference, and you're also going to see some similarities. So let's look at this, champions versus citizen developers. For our traditional champion program, when I would run like a SharePoint or Teams adoption program, do I want that person, my champions, to have tech literacy? Not necessarily. In fact, sometimes the less they're tech literate, the better, because they can relate to everybody, right? They can say, hey, I'm not really a techie person, but hey, this Teams thing is easy to use, right? That's actually very impactful. Citizen developer, obviously, to a varying degree, they're going to be more tech literate. It's just the nature of a citizen developer. Main ways of working for champions: influence, communicate, model. Main ways of working for a citizen developer, a little different there. Discover, analyze, build, right? Yes, they're modeling, I get it, but this is like an overgeneralization, I realize, but generally, for champions, we're looking for people who are very collaborative. For citizen developers, those kinds of people are often more individual contributor types, Not that they're not collaborative, don't get me wrong. And again, that could be very different on an individual basis. And for a champion, when I'm looking for champions, I'm looking for people who have knowledge about kind of overall wide-ranging everyday business processes, right? How does your team upload, use documents? What process do you use to, when you're editing things and getting approvals? I'm very, top level stuff. Citizen developers are focused on discrete business processes and specialized tasks. So these are some of the differences, citizen champions versus, but let's switch that to and, right? Because we like and better than versus. They're both subject matter experts in their group's business processes. They're both willing to train other people to use new tools. They're both modeling new ways of working to an extent. And most importantly, both champions and citizen developers serve as change agents. So before I even talk about a citizen developer program and engaging citizen developers, I want you to kind of get a different mindset and don't think that, yes, we need to do specific things for citizen developers, but they should be part of your overall champion change management program. And why do I say that? Because when we talk about a champion program, honestly, when we talk about, like, if I go to a client, a big client, and say, hey, what's your budget for adoption and change management? Even some of the biggest clients will be like, yeah, about that, right? And it's very hard to sell that to the C-suite very often, right? Because it just sounds like a lot of blah, blah, blah. But I can very easily sell and measure the ROI for business process optimization and automation, which is what citizen developers do. And these two things are not really that separate. And that's why I kind of have this slide. They feed off each other. So if you need to do some kind of champion program, adoption program, and you also want to do a citizen developer program, or maybe you already have this other champion program and you're thinking the citizen developer thing is something different, I would just encourage you to maybe change that thinking and think how you could merge these two together. Just something to think about. So a rose by any other name. So obviously we're moving into the Shakespeare portion of the presentation now, meaning a champion is a citizen developer, and a citizen developer is a champion, really, because they're doing champion things. Now there is actually a citizen development maturity model, and the PMI put this out. I think it's super good. And in fact, there's a fantastic book that they have that is like sitting on the shelf behind me about citizen development and citizen developer programs. They actually have a certification in it. I think it's quite good. I didn't take the certification, but I have the book and I've read the book. I think it's very, very good. And you can see that as you think about your citizen developer program, you're going to want to think about moving from these, moving kind of down to maturity here, right? And I think it's quite interesting. Innovating, they have innovating here. There's all kinds of hype about innovation programs, blah, 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 right? Citizen developers are like the founding innovators. So that it's amazing. And so if your organization has an innovation program, but not a champion program, and you're thinking, how do I get funding and attention and time, resources for my citizen developer program, maybe you can hook it up to your innovation program. Something to think about. So now let's get down to the nitty gritty. And again, I'm going to build the foundation, and then we're going to talk about the 8-week program, and then we're going to look at some of the provided materials. So there were 2 pillars and 1 foundation. Obviously, the foundation is governance. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we're going to talk about engagement, governance, and support. So under engagement, we're going to talk about creating a compelling vision. How are we going to engage people to do this? Create a compelling vision, combine that with good storytelling, and also think about transparency and fairness. And you'll see why. I'll talk a little bit about that when we get there. Under support, we're going to talk technical training, but also process training. Don't forget, you may have people who are really excited about these tools and they're subject matter experts in their business, in the part of their business, but maybe they don't understand process. They haven't been through the whole software development life cycle. They don't understand. So, how to elicit requirements, or there's all kinds of things they haven't thought. They've never gone through, like, what is enterprise, what is it going to take to maintain this application? So we need to train them. And then, of course, provide hands-on assistance. And under governance, again, you can see there's like a pattern here, 3. I don't know why it keeps happening to me. Technical guardrails, operating models, and standards and templates. And all of these 3 things are important for your governance, which is the foundation for your citizen developer program. And that's how, of course, you're going to get business value. So let's talk governance, because that's always the what do you want to call it? Elephant in the room, right? So I love this picture. That's why I chose it. I absolutely love it. So imagine you're driving along this road, and there's like this big cliff there, right? Clearly there's like a drop off here. But if I'm driving along this road, what am I looking at? I'm not really looking at the drop off. I'm looking at this beautiful sunset, the beautiful ocean, the view, whatever it is. And part of the reason I'm not thinking about falling off is because there's a guardrail there. Now, I'm sure if I was going like 100 miles an hour and I just wailed off, I'm going to fly over the guardrail, whatever. But this is a mental thing. There's a guardrail there. And I'm sure all of us have experienced driving on a road. I know I have. I live in upstate New York, and there's some roads that go up mountains that actually don't have a guardrail, and you're like going up the side of the mountain and you're kind of like looking over like, and you're driving 2 miles an hour, right? So what's wonderful about this is, if you're providing the right governance, you're providing the guardrail, and your citizen developers feel safe. They're safe. You did everything you could do to give them a good experience, but also keep the business from falling off the cliff, right? And they're enjoying the experience. It's beautiful. They're looking at the view. They're not worried about falling over. Everybody's good. And I think that this is the perfect analogy. So just think about that as we go through. So the foundation is governance. So let's talk about technical guardrails. So what are the kinds of things you need to talk about? Now, that's not what this session is about today. Certainly happy to talk about that. And I do it all the time with our clients, but these are things you're going to want to, I'm just going to mention them and you can dig into more. You need to define an environment strategy. By environment, we mean a Power Platform environment. Some of these words, naming, Power Platform environment strategy defined and configured. This is how you create little containers where your citizen developers can do stuff and not blow up other stuff. That's really the bottom line. If you're not familiar with them, that's what it's all about. You're going to create data loss prevention policies. And the reason you do that, you give your people an environment, you create the data loss prevention policy that says what they can do there, what data they can connect to and what they can't. And then you give them their little container and let them have at it, right? So you've got the guardrail, they can have fun. They can enjoy the view. And you want to put some sort of an app and workflow review process in place before your program gets too big. You don't have to have this when you first start out. If you've got 6, citizen devs or something, 5 citizen devs, not that big of a deal. But if you're in an enterprise, a large enterprise, and you're going to onboard maybe 1,000 citizen devs, you think eventually, or more, you want to have a robust process in place before you start. And you want to have your adaptive governance zones defined. And a while ago, many of you have probably seen this. A while ago, I think it was Gartner came out with kind of and I have it later in this deck, a little graph that says, what's high risk, what's low risk, how to define it. And that's important because that goes to later on when we talk about transparency and fairness. You need to have a rubric. It shouldn't just be like you're deciding when you review apps and flows and say, yes, we'll allow this. No, we won't. You're going to have a rubric, and it's going to be very clear to everybody. If you look at an app and you say, my goodness, this is now some mission critical app for this whole organization. And if it goes down, we're in trouble. I'm sorry, Mr. Citizen or Ms. Citizen Developer, you can't be in charge of this anymore, and you take it away from them. Hopefully it wouldn't have gotten to that point, but I'm just making an extreme example. It needs to be very clear how you made that decision, right? So a rubric is very important. And then thinking about governance, people don't often think about this as part of governance, but of course it is. Who owns the Citizen Developer Program in your organization? And do you have a RACI model for it? Who owns the Power Platform as a product? Have you thought about that, right? Like a product owner. Maybe in your organization you have an M365 product owner, but I think as your organization, if you're going to do citizen development, you probably need a Power Platform product owner as well. Just something to think about. Obviously, you need governance processes for the things we're talking about, IT governance. And especially you need onboarding and offboarding for your citizen devs, your makers. How do we bring them into this program? How do we train them? What do we have for them ongoing? And then how do we offboard them? When somebody leaves the organization, what do we do with the stuff that they've created? How have we prepared for that, right? Those are all important things to think about. And finally, think about, you're going to have a maker community, a community of makers. Who's going to manage that? It shouldn't be you. Ideally, that leadership will come up through the maker community, because of course, with any initiative like this, the goal is always to make the community self-sustaining, right? So I, in a past life, owned a website that was a community website back in the early 2000s, I guess. It was the early days of the web. I was there, Gandalf. And I will say that it was wonderful because I've done a lot of, made a lot of wrong choices in my life. Not terrible things, but this is one thing I did right. Is I had at one point we had like 40,000 users on our message boards or whatever it was. And I had 12 moderators that were all volunteers, and they were the ones who rose up and helped me moderate. So I know something about that. And I will tell you, the best communities are managed by themselves. And then your operating model should include how do you support production applications? Because, it's one thing to say we have these makers and they, this maker is going to handle it, but you need to have a plan. And then when we talk standards and templates, so there are some great articles out there now on low coding standards. I've seen a bunch of them out there. Best practices in Power Apps and Power Automate. So you want to teach those to your folks. Eventually, you'll have a catalog of apps that are available that people know about so that they don't replicate them, so that we're not reinventing the wheel. You could even have app templates that people can start with. And you should think about ALM stands for Application Lifecycle Management. And that is how you deploy. Now, Microsoft has just come out with this fantastic Power Platform pipelines, if you've heard about this, that takes, that's a lightweight version of this kind of ALM idea. But it at least allows you to easily deploy between like a dev and a test and a prod environment. And so that's a great start. And then, of course, there is more in the Center of Excellence Starter Kit for those who know about that. Oh, that was a lot I talked about. And then finally, you need to have standard processes, right? So do you use an agile methodology? Do you have documentation standards? Because, as apps get to be more along the critical spectrum, you want to have good documentation. So those are all things to think about. This is that adaptive governance framework I was talking about from Gartner. I think it's still good. It's a little bit old, but I think it's still good. And this is a way to think about which applications you say, yeah, we'll let the makers do that and they can have at it, and we're just going to monitor it, however we are going to do our monitoring. Then in that middle zone, we may be more involved. We may want to do a review. We may want to move it to a different environment, etc. We may want to now have enforced documentation. And then in that top right zone, those are the ones that we need to take control of as maybe IT professionals, because they're so mission critical or they contain such sensitive information. So this is a good basis for you to work with. So clearly we're still in the SharePoint phase of the presentation, in the SharePoint. So it just goes to show you Shakespeare phase of the presentation. So we talked about governing citizen developers a little bit, high level. Now let's talk about engaging them. So you may think, what is all this about vision and storytelling? Oh, that sounds like blah, blah, blah consultant stuff, right? And just as an aside, I've been a consultant for a while, but before I was a consultant, I was on the other side of the fence, right? I was sitting in an IT department as either, you know, a M365 product owner or a project manager, and, you know, having consultants present to me. And I remember just rolling my eyes when they started talking about like vision and, you know, who's your project sponsor, and I'd be like, oh God, not this again. But now that I'm a consultant, I got to tell you, I realize why we talk about it, because I see projects all the time fail without it. Because now, you know, that's the advantage. There's disadvantages to being a consultant. One of the advantages is that you get to see across many businesses and many, you know, different verticals and different size organizations. And that's what I love about it. But now I realize why this is so important. It's not blah, blah, blah. So having a compelling vision to engage people means that whatever vision you're painting is simple and easy to understand. Why should we do this thing? As an organization, why should we devote, you know, time and resources to it? Whatever you say has to be simple and easy to understand, both for potential people makers who are going to participate, as well as for C-suite executives. For them, it needs to be super simple and easy to understand. And it has to appeal to the emotional. So it's not about, you know, obviously we need to talk ROI and all that good stuff later, but in the beginning we have to appeal to the emotional. And so these are the things that I see really work when organizations are trying to, you know, put out a citizen developer program. Talking about innovation, as I said before, touch word, employee engagement, big topic now. You know, Viva is not the only employee engagement tool that Microsoft has. Anything that engages employees. And I think citizen developers are some of the most engaged employees. Think about it. Empowering employees, right? Business agility, you know, being able to you know, create an app really fast and turn it around and get it out and, you know, solve a problem. You know, future of work, hybrid work, important. Automation. I can't tell you, automation, if you talk automation to, you know, VPs and senior leaders, they're like, yes, automation. Yes, we want automation. You know, like that's just a word they love. And of course, that is real. I mean, yeah, we'll talk about that more, but clearly, you know, if you've been around, you know that, you know, automation, AI, all of that, it's not coming, it's here. And if your organization's not taking advantage of it, you're behind the curve. And also this idea of doing more with less, you know, as employees, I don't like to hear that phrase, because that says to me, oh, you're going to tell me to do more now because there's less people. I don't like that. But that's not really what Microsoft means when it says that. Maybe, I hope. But it does work as a touch phrase for painting a compelling vision. So now let's go to good storytelling. So if you've ever visited Microsoft's site about M365 champions, and they have a great one, by the way, if you don't know that, there are a lot of resources there. They actually have a whole set of resources dedicated to storytelling. And you might think, what does that have to do with anything? But storytelling is the basis for all emotional decisions, really. Like if you're going to make a decision about something and you hear a great story about it, that's what moves you, right? So when you're these principles are from that deck. I've used them very successfully over and over. Use real life stories, preferably from your organization. So ideally, you'll have one maker who's sort of been doing their own thing out there, and they made something and their group is now using it, and it's like really cool and it's really helpful. And your first meeting, you're going to bring them in and you're going to have them talk about it. Not you, you're going to have them talk about it. Really important. Good stories have an arc, right? They don't just talk about, hey, I did this thing and it was really easy and nothing bad happened and everything's great. No, because that's not real life. And people like to hear, well, I did the thing and I didn't really and then it blew up, but then, IT helped me, but then, and now it's working now, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. And of course, again, peer-to-peer storytelling works best, right? All very important points. Transparency and fairness. So when you're going to think about starting to apply guardrails and barriers, and the reason I say this is because what we're finding is a lot of organizations had, Power Platform, they didn't lock it down, sometimes because they didn't even know it was there, but sometimes just because they didn't think it was anything, they were just like, yeah, okay, let people go over there and play. And then you realize you have all these things in the default environment, and you need to get control. You need to know what they are, and you need to get control. And you can't just lock everything down, right? You don't want to do that because that'll stifle everybody. Because remember, we're talking guardrails, not walls, right? Whatever things that you, as you're applying these things, you have to make sure that they're applied consistently and based on policy. So the people know that if they feel like you've told them no, you are applying that no very fairly. And I say that again as somebody who's run a huge community online. That was the thing. People can put up with almost anything. They can put up with the site going down for 3 days. They can put up with, what they can't put up with is if you moderate their post and they feel like somebody else did something worse and you didn't moderate them. So I'm just putting that out there, because that'll poison the water faster than anything. Again, when you're evaluating your apps and flows, at some point you'll have a published rubric so everybody knows. And whatever you're communicating is timely and open. You don't just do some blanket action to all your makers and tell them later. Be very open and transparent. Obviously, there's situations where, there's some kind of issue and security issue, whatever, you have to take action right away. Of course, that's not what we're talking about here. So now let's talk about, I talked about employee engagement, and this is a slide from Microsoft. And, at first I thought, this is marketing hype, whatever, but actually I think mostly it's not. I mean, probably a little, but they said 82% of low-code or no-code users agreed that technology provides an opportunity to improve their development knowledge and technical skills, and that use of these platforms is shown to have led to an 83% positive impact on work satisfaction and 80% impact on work morale. So in combination with your other efforts, like your Viva, and your Engage and all these other things that you're doing, think about a citizen developer program. So now we've moved on from the Shakespeare part of the presentation to the Lord of the Rings part of the presentation. For those of you who are familiar with this, you can tell I'm a geek all the way around. And this is you get bonus points if you know what this is from. You might recognize the door, but this is a illustration from a very famous edition of Lord of the Rings. So let's talk about, I'm looking in the chat to see if anybody knows. I'm very hurt nobody knows. Very sad. I'll tell you later if you don't know. Supporting citizen developers. So how are we going to speak, friend, and enter? Joe, you have made my day. Brilliant. Melon. Okay. So how do we support them? So obviously technical training, obviously Power Platform basics. I think Tom Daly, no clue. Yeah. Power Platform basics, Microsoft Learn. Yes. So Microsoft Learn, I got to tell you, I think Microsoft Learn is so good. We've been around, right? I've been around for years, and I've seen Microsoft documentation go from like non-existent to what? What was that? To okay, maybe, but it's not very good, to like fantastic. I'm so excited about Microsoft Learn. And I think for Power Platform, they have done an outstanding job. Outstanding. You really can learn in Microsoft Learn, and they actually walk you through getting a developer tenant, how to set up the exercise. It's just so good. The other thing I would give your makers is where to find reliable online information. Reliable is the word there, because, again, if you've done any looking up of anything on the internet, you know that you can find tons of stuff that's not reliable. And very often what I hear from clients is, we Googled it, and it said that we could do it, but then when we went to do it, we couldn't do it. Or somebody said they got it working, but it didn't work. So I have a list of sites that I, and people that I follow, YouTubers and people who I think are fantastic. I provide that to the makers so that, they can start there. This is what you can believe what these people tell you is basically what I'm saying. I also train in design patterns. I think that's really important. So makers may kind of get how to do stuff, but one thing they're not familiar with is, what is, how can we, what can we do using Power Apps or using Power Automate or using Dataverse or these tools? What's the pattern that we're going to use over and over again? What are some of the things we're going to do over and over again? And I try to teach those. And then, of course, best practices, right? There are things we shouldn't do. So we talk through that. Now, when we talk process training, this is going to depend on your organization and your how many, how big your citizen developer program is. But I love to give people some materials or foundation, link them to something in business analysis. Because it's very easy as a maker to get excited about your idea. What's a lot harder is to listen to the feedback of others and translate that into what you should be building. So I think that's an important concept. You may not do this right away, but as your program matures a little, important concept. And of course, it'll help people throughout their career, no matter what they do, right? A little business analysis is good for everybody. If you're a company that, does a lot with Agile, you may have some Agile development. You may have training for Agile, include your citizen devs in that. Train them in change management. So one thing I find is that citizen developers are often very surprised by the amount of resistance they get when they're trying to introduce their new tool. Like they know in their heart that this is going to save you 27 steps. Why are you resisting? But they don't, change management is not something maybe that they have experience with. Maybe they do, but maybe they don't. So, you can teach them the ProSci ADKAR method. And if they really want to be great, maybe your organization will pay for them to get certified. But I highly recommend at least going to the ProSci site and getting those materials. I include that as part of my champion guide. When I give my champions a guide, I include a little, what you can, what's publicly available. It's very helpful. And then again, depending on how active they are and how big the projects are, you may want to just have a little bit of training for them in project management if they don't have it already. So let's move on to hands-on assistance. So Microsoft is big on these hackathons, and I'm going to talk about this a little later. They actually, this is also part of engaging, by the way, you can use this to engage. They actually have a whole guide about how to run a hackathon, if you didn't know that. It's actually some good material. Great way, though, to start training people. Obviously, having office hours. You could even do, code review, but, step through an app with folks and look at it and ask questions and praise them for figuring out hard problems. Very important stuff. And before we go on, we should stop here. I have no idea why we're stopping, but those guys told me to stop, so I'm stopping. That's also another picture from that same edition of Lord of the Rings, by the way. But seriously, this talks about change makers and change management principles, and awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And you're going to use this over and over again with them. So this is a great slide. I love it. Now, also, we still have our Lego Gandalf here. We're still in the Lord of the Rings phase of the presentation. if you don't know about this, this is the best thing since sliced bread. There is a new hub template in SharePoint that you can install that spins up a whole SharePoint site for supporting and engaging makers for Power Platform. It does require the ability to run PowerShell, as with installing any template, right? That's not an out-of-the-box template. But it's so easy. It takes like 10 minutes. Less than 10 minutes, you have this gorgeous site, and it's partly populated. So I'm going to show you, actually, what this could look like. So this is like the home page you get. If you use Yammer, you'll have Yammer here because they will have asked you to create a Yammer community. And then you get this whole thing, like success section, success stories, champion of the week, events, stuff like that. But there's this page for guided learning, and look at what they did. They actually linked to all the Microsoft things, Microsoft Learn. It's already populated. You know how many times I've made this page? Oh, it would have saved me so much time. They also have a fantastic page on environments to start teaching your makers about environments and why. It will kind of give them the clue of, if you tell them that their app has to move to its own environment, it'll kind of help them understand why. Very important page, moving resources between environments. And so that's that. I just wanted to show you that. So we've covered a lot of ground. So now we're going to actually go into the 8-week program, because all the things I talk about here kind of require that foundation. That's why I did that. I hope that was helpful. By the way, if you don't know, we're moving into the World of Warcraft phase of the presentation now. This is a little World of Warcraft guy. Before I move on, I said a lot. Does anyone have anything they want to ask or any comment they want to make about what I talked about, or any other topic related to this topic? All right. So let us move on then. So again, before you begin, what should you have done? You will have turned on tenant level analytics in Power Platform. That's important because that way you can aggregate analytics. You will have restricted environment creation to administrators. 3, you will set up your DLP policies, but don't implement them yet. There is a way to set them up but not implement them, because you want to have them ready to go after you've communicated to your users that you're going to set them up, that this connection that they're using to whatever third-party app is not allowed anymore, right? You don't want to just shut it off. 4, if you're going to use the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, and it's the Center of Excellence Starter Kit is absolutely fantastic, and they've added an installation wizard. Thank you, because that really was very difficult before. If you're going to use it, get it configured. Just make sure that all the maker emails are turned off for now. We're not ready to send out those maker emails. And then make sure you do have that compelling vision. And you have some initial communications ready to go, right? Including maybe that SharePoint hub that we just looked at, right? So you've covered the basics with governance. These are kind of the last steps you're going to do, and now you're ready. So week 1, you're going to either review the out-of-the-box reporting in the Power Platform Admin Center, which has really gotten quite good, by the way, or the reporting that comes with the COE Starter Kit, whichever you're doing. And what you are looking for is finding the makers with the most apps and flows. The apps and flows, they may only have one app or flow, but it has the most usage, right? Very high usage. And any apps and flows that look like they're going to be affected by any DLP policy changes that you're thinking about, because you need to bring them into the fold quick. So basically, we're not just putting out this mass thing saying, hey, everybody, do you want to be a citizen developer? We're looking to see if we have any nation citizen developers already. We're making our initial outreach to these folks and inviting them to a meeting, right? So, and in that meeting, you're going to do, this is week 2 already, but in that meeting, let me go back to week 1, you're going to do maybe demo some of the things people have done. Give them the opportunity. Give them the opportunity to talk about what they've done and be proud of it, right? And they should be. You're going to talk about changes that are coming, environments, it's, training, DLP policies, guardrails versus walls, right? You want to get them into that mindset. We're giving you guardrails is to keep you safe. Keeps both of us safe, but and all of that. That's your initial call. In week 2, right? So this is what in week 2, you bring them together. So week 1, you're finding them. Week 2, you're bringing them together. And I do have an agenda. And this is an agenda I use all the time in change management. What is happening? Why is it happening? When is it happening? How will it affect me? And show and tell, because the show and tell is what's in it for me. What can I do with this, right? So, and here is, you'll give them the Power Platform Hub. Maybe you'll have a team for them, assign 1 or 2 Microsoft Learn modules and have them actually give them homework to do. Week 3, you'll check in with them. This is what's called a Murloc. Isn't he cute? But not in the game, he's not cute. They kill you when they gang up on you. You'll have a brief call or meeting to touch base, see how folks are feeling about the program. Make sure to listen to the feedback. And remind them that the next meeting will be an important milestone. They should make every effort to attend. So in week 4, you're going to do an art of the possible. And so you're either going to bring in an expert from your own IT department or a consultant or, whatever, to conduct an art of the possible with the Power Platform session. And the idea here is you're going to show them cool things they can do, as well as you're going to start getting them used to some of the governance concepts that we've talked about. And you can even show them, if you want, how easy it is to move a solution between environments, so that if they need to move their solution later, you show them how easy it is and it's not scary. So use this as an opportunity to start training on, thinking about enterprise processes, right? The art of the possible, and again, this sounds like, oh, what? This is so important. What I find all the time is folks don't understand what they can and can't do. They just don't even understand the potential. This is going to be super important. In week 5, you're going to come together again. So this is pretty intense, these first 8 weeks. There's a lot happening. So, it's a commitment. But what you want to do is kind of get everything kind of moving quickly, right? So in week 5, you may do an AMA. So have any experts you have answer maker questions. If they've been trying to do something, they've been looking at a Learn module, they have questions based on the art of the possible that they just saw. That's the time to answer those questions. You could do a bite-sized training. I think danger zones, and I'll show you those in a minute, are great training to do at this stage of the game. Helps people understand. You can do a show and tell. Again, always, try to have a maker up there demoing something that they've done, and assign additional Microsoft Learn modules. Now in week 6, this guy is now getting very serious here. You're going to get ready for your hackathon. You're going to distribute rules and prize categories on the hub site. You're going to tell your makers that they can invite 1 guest hacker. So what's nice about this is you now want to expand. Remember, you initially invited these people. Now, of course, if people they hear about it and ask to come, of course, you're including them. But now you're asking them to expand the circle. So if they're a citizen dev, they probably know somebody else who thinks like that. So maybe they'll bring somebody else. Now, there's a lot to this, so you have to get ready. You create an environment to use for the hackathon, or you can get a trial tenant. There's ways to do it. Microsoft there's a great link here that explains step by step how to do it and gives a lot more detail. But just be sure on your end that you have, a number of people to help with this. And you want to conscript some judges not from IT. Because at the end of the hackathon, you can have fun categories too. It doesn't just have to be the most useful or whatever, most polished. It can be like the funniest or the silliest or the prettiest or the, whatever. And then in week 7, you're going to do your hackathon. And, so again, I'm suggesting some prizes, right, that you can give out. This really, surprisingly, this, from what I have experienced and what I have heard from other people who have done them, it really jumpstarts the program. And then in week 8, you want to find a way to promote the winning entry. So, for instance, if you use Viva Connections and you have little cards, the little cards that come with Viva Connections on that homepage, put those, put something there. Just get it out, get it on the homepage of your intranet. Talk about it at an all-staff meeting. This is where you want to promote it more broadly. I'll stop because David has a question. The slides aren't in sync. Oh,
so we're seeing week 8. I'm seeing week 8 now. So I think maybe you were just talking ahead of one at the grumpy guy was on there.
Yeah, I'm seeing week. That's what I'm on is week 8.
Okay, all right.
Oh, I'm so sorry if I was confusing. Is anyone else having an issue?
I don't know if it's anything specific, but yeah, I don't know. I think it was like 2 slides ago. Maybe it would. Maybe.
Oh, maybe briefly. There was a brief. Okay, thank you for telling me,
that's
David.
fine.
I
Looks like it's
appreciate
working.
that. Okay, great. Thank you. I've moved on to the next slide. It says, "What's in the COE starter kit?" Do you see that, David?
I see that. Yes.
Brilliant.
So I'm assuming.
Okay, good. So I have talked a lot. So that is 8 weeks. And in 8 weeks, you see, we have done a lot. We've generated a lot of excitement, and hopefully we've generated some success. So a lot of people will ask, if you're not familiar with the COE starter kit, there's like tons of cool stuff in it. This is kind of an overview of the kind of launching, the jumping off page for all the different things that's in it. These little symbols where it says admin app and maker app, I put these in just to show you not all of these are for the makers. Some are just for admins and some are maker focused. So just to give you a sense, there's a ton of stuff. And again, I don't have the time. That's not my topic. I'd love to talk about that one, but I think probably somebody else already did. It's amazing. Now, the next slides, I've included a ton of slides in this deck that I think you can use in your champion calls, in your citizen developer calls / champion calls. And I think they're really great. And again, these are just, you can use them as you will. What are other organizations doing at the Power Platform? Just some lunch and learn topics. So basic concepts for citizen developers, like, what is a variable? When should I use one? What's an expression in Power Automate? When should I use one? What's a loop? Stuff like that, right? Just basic stuff that And then we have our danger zones. And I like to use these slides because it really helps, gives you something to talk about. And it helps people feel like, oh, I'm not going to break things. I know what to do, right? So just what are things to help your people watch out for, right? Power Automate design patterns, Power Apps danger zones, Power Apps design patterns, and stuff like that. So that is actually my deck, actually. Any questions about the 8 weeks? Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. Any questions, comments, concerns? Have you run a citizen developer program and you found out something different? Because that would be fine with me. Diverse viewpoints are what makes life better. All right. Well, you can see I'm very passionate about this topic because, again, to say it again, please give folks the opportunity to grow and develop, because you never know whose life you could change by having this opportunity. My life is totally different. I started out as an elementary school teacher, actually, and I have ended up doing what I do now. And I've traveled around the world, literally. The sun literally never sets on the M365 rollouts that I've done. I've just had a great career, and I want to make sure other people, to the extent I can, I want to promote other people to have that same opportunity. So this is the feedback. I would love to get your feedback. I'm always looking to improve. I'm a fairly new speaker on the circuit. And so I'm definitely looking to improve. So I'd love to get your feedback. Please, by all means. And there's a fantastic raffle. I don't even know what this thing is, but it looks very impressive and I'm scared of it. So you should sign up for it or else. And then there is also my speaker card. So again, I'm Andrea Mondello with Witham Smith and Brown. And there's this, you can register for a chance to win since you've attended. Aside from that cool thing that I'm afraid of, we have Amazon gift cards and this wonderful book by Jason. So register for a chance to win today. So if that is, unless there are any other questions, I am done. I've so enjoyed being here with you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And Tom, thank you so much for inviting me to speak.
Thank you. Yeah, that was very good. I learned a lot there. I haven't had to run any citizen developer programs, but it's definitely interesting. It's an interesting topic. I'm scared of citizen developers because because I'm a real developer, I guess you would say.
Fair enough.
So the concept was a little scary, but I get it. So let it, and what you had in the first slide was like kind of like spot on. Where it was like, let citizen developers sort of create. They just want to solve a problem. They don't want to
That's
they
right.
don't care how it's done. They just want to get it done. This is what I want it to do. So some of the best ideas come from the citizen developer community. And
That's right.
I'm a traditional developer. I don't want to do anything until you tell me what you want it to do, and then I'll see about doing it. It's like a different mindset. It's like because I
Citizen
don't have the
developers.
problem. I
Right,
don't have
that's
the
right.
problem.
That's right.
Yeah.
I always love to say, citizen developers innovate at the point of need.
Yeah.
They
I don't have the
innovate
problem.
quickly. Right.
Yeah.
They're the ones with the problem and they try to solve it.
Yeah, it's crazy to see what they come up with sometimes. So it's see what they come up with. It's really pretty interesting. Like these hackathons. So the woman that I'm going to share the link with has done these kind of hackathons at her company. So she's
great.
really interested in this, and I think that's where you get some of the best kind of innovation, right? Just letting people do something with a set of tools that they don't really know they know what they want to do. They don't necessarily know how, but they figure it out as they go, and you come up with really interesting
And
stuff.
again, that makes people so much happier in their jobs when they have that agency.
Yeah.
So, all right, I got to run. Thank
Yeah,
you
me
again for
too.
the
Thank you
opportunity.
so
Thanks
much.
all for listening. Bye.
All right, take care. Alrighty, I'm gonna stop the recording.